Hello and welcome to the Daily Bible Podcast. My name is William Hemsworth. Thank you for continuing this journey with me as we continue through the New Testament. Today we start in chapter 2 of the Gospel of Matthew. Now in chapter 1 we see the genealogy of Jesus. We talked about the betrothal process in ancient Jewish culture. And we went through the dream sequence with Joseph and the angel that convinced him to continue on marrying the Virgin Mary. Now today we start in chapter 2, which is where we see a lot of the things that we see at Christmas. You know, the wise men, the star, Jesus being born in Bethlehem, etc. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 and 2. And it says, "In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, 'Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising, and have come to pay him homage.'" So a couple things about this verse. Firstly is the significance of Bethlehem in this story. Bethlehem is mentioned in a few places in the Old Testament. If you remember in chapter 1, in the genealogy, we see that Jesus is in the line of King David, and this is actually King David's hometown. Bethlehem is King David's hometown, and it's where he was anointed king of Israel in 1 Samuel 16, 1 through 13. So it's a pretty important connection that's showing his kingship over Israel, and that connection between the Old and the New Testament. The next thing is about King Herod. We read about King Herod. He reigned from 37 to about 4 BC. So most scholars think that Jesus was born, 4 or 5 or maybe even 6 BC. That has no bearing over. We have our things today, the Common Era, BCE, CE, things like that. By all accounts, just historically speaking, Jesus was not born in year 0. It was a couple years before that. That's not really has no bearing over the historical fact, okay? Now, King Herod, by all accounts, was fairly unqualified for his position. He did not like political rivals, especially those who were Jewish. And we see this later on in this chapter, where he orders the slaughter of all male children because there was a king of the Jews that was born. We'll cover that later on when we get there. However, he was a very shrewd diplomat. He did a lot to fund public works in Judea. And there was a lineage of Herods throughout the New Testament, and we're going to see those as we move through. You're going to see a lot of them in. We'll encounter this a lot in the book of Acts. All right, and the Magi, the wise men, we call them the 3 kings, but they were not kings. That's kind of a tradition that's crept in. They were more like priests. They were advisors. Historically speaking, they were astrologers. Okay, they were astrologers. And even some scholars will say, since they were from Persia, that they were Zoroastrian priests. Okay, and in the ancient world, there are numerous accounts of ancient astrologers interpreting astronomical phenomena as heralding the birth of kings. So you can imagine where they see this big star pop up in the sky and they want to go see where this new king is. It kind of draws them in. And so they go into Jerusalem and they say, where is this new king. Where's the king? Where's the king of the Jews? And so they follow the star because it's a new king. Now, the star may have been a planetary conjunction, like a supernova, or something purely supernatural. Which, it being supernatural, seems pretty consistent with it coming to rest over where the baby Jesus was in verse 9. We'll get to that later on. Whatever the case, this alludes to the Star of Jacob in Numbers 24:17, which is prophesied by another Gentile by the name of Balaam. And that's very important. This is a prophecy again from the Old Testament given by a Gentile, which also signifies again that Jesus is not only for the Jewish people, that he is for everyone. Well, I hope this episode of the Daily Bible Podcast has been helpful, just to give a little bit more background to that Christmas story that we always hear so much about this time of year. God bless you guys. Join me tomorrow as we continue on into verse 3. Have a great day.